We could start with, actually right there if we want, and then we
Yep.
can transfer it onto the paper. We could number them, so all the like conservation easement.
Do we want to break it down into maybe 3 or 4 categories, such as the farm, the forest lands, and so forth? Try just to bring some order to this?
Yeah, I think so, because we've got recreation.
Yeah,
And so we've got, from session 1, we've got campsites and recreation trails.
yeah,
And so that's it essentially from session 1. That's listed there. So then on number 2, we've got recreation.
yeah.
And then from 3, we've got the recreation, we've got cross-country, which is skiing, I think that was on.
And
I gotta
snowmobile.
get closer.
Snowmobiling.
Are you looking for likes across all of them? Because you have 3 or 4 themes, so.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Rather than just throwing them out there, just kind of pull them out, and like recreation would be one, and,
Education would be another,
Education.
conservation easements another.
Yeah.
Multiple.
If we have a heading of recreation, then under that, we could put
We could put what the other
the
things are.
cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, whatever.
Exactly. I mean, we can pick probably 6 or 7 things out of there that would fall under recreation.
Yeah.
I'm gonna block you here, Ed.
No.
Okay. So on the very first column, under recreation, we've got campsites, trails.
Well, that's what's primarily hiking trails, right?
Yes, I think so, yeah. But I think they also, if I remember correctly, they also talked about ATVs, snowmobiling.
Last night, horse
They have
horse
horse
riding
riding.
on the
Yes,
trails
and
was
horseback riding,
brought
yeah.
up.
I think you said
Snowshoeing.
that. A shooting range.
And hunting education.
Yes, on that education, we probably put one
But
hunting.
hunting education, is that education, or is that recreational?
I think probably both, maybe. Okay.
You know, and that's probably true, because if somebody is here looking at business types of things, they'd want to know what they need to know about hunting, to have hunters come and stay.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
things.
yeah. So let's see, we've got horseback riding here too. Yep. You see shooting range.
Under education or?
I put that in
recreation?
recreation, yeah. Let's see, we've got campsites. Yeah,
Yeah.
trails,
Yeah.
hiking,
Yep.
horseback shooting range.
Well, then, under shooting range, you've also got hunting, because that was also mentioned.
I'm sorry, what was that, Sandy?
Hunting
Hunting?
as the activity.
Yeah, hunting was
As
actually.
Yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to-
it's gonna be under recreation as well.
Shooting range or hunting education.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know about the size of the brooks in there, but I suppose that would include fishing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice to mention somewhere, the gentleman that had the comment about Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts.
Yes,
And,
yes.
having a location.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Would that
that was
be-
a
Yeah.
nice idea.
That was gentleman over here, the very first one.
And I'm not sure that that fits under any of those categories.
Well, we could have just another one, a
Yeah.
category
other.
called other.
But he did. I think he was connected with the Boy Scouts too, wasn't he? We'd like it to be kind of a retreat with a,
But even where you have campsites, you know, that's the same sort of thing. They're
Yeah.
talking about assigning 3 acres or 5 acres to each group and then having a common area to do a jamboree or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Could we put that down maybe as just public? Because that's a public thing, right? Boy Scouts, Girl
You know,
Scouts.
they're a private organization.
Oh, they-
Okay.
Getting smaller and smaller, but,
Oh, okay.
Well, don't forget the girls.
yep.
Where would we put 4H? Would that be under education?
What?
Put what?
4H
Animal science, yep.
under education?
Well, that's more than just animal science, because 4-H has already done
They do ag,
what do you
Crops
call
as
it?
well.
No, but they've also done where they made
preservation,
The trail?
the horseshoe is, what do you call a horseshoe?
blacksmith.
Blacksmith.
Farrier.
Blacksmith.
Yeah.
Well, they did blacksmith
Yeah.
work here, so they have blacksmith and they also do have crops.
And at the Moultonborough one, a Representative Cordelli talked about bringing a lot of other educational units into the 4-H here. And he mentioned 3 or 4 other outside of county. Oh God, I'm having a brain cramp here. Ag
Educational Center.
Yeah, okay, all right.
You talk about sustainable ag certificates.
The ag high school.
So under education, could we also do research? Put that as research?
Yes, we talked about that as well. And also there's something, and I think we also talked about ag programs at the high school level
Yeah.
for both Kent and
Well,
Kingswood.
they already have them, but he's talking about essentially
I think outreach here.
outreach of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I had also in here, financial education and connection. I don't know what
Business
the rest of that
development,
was,
Yeah.
Forestry management.
Well, doesn't that fall under, I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose we can list them, but that's basically ag
Yeah,
educational
I would-
center.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Susan, that's it. And if I remember, I think Glenn Cordelli also talked about these other educational units, certificate programs.
Yes. Under recreation, there's one more major category that I've like thought about we could have, is production ag. You know, say, somebody comes in and leases some land.
Yes.
And is running their own business.
Yeah.
We
put
have
that in
production
ag-
as opposed to regular ag,
Yeah.
as opposed to education.
Would we put that in agriculture though, rather than education? Because we're talking about leasing land to.
But that's what I mean by production ag.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
So leasing, or what was the other one he said last night, the,
The tenant,
Tenants? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
tenant
that's like-
farming.
That's like that.
Yes, yeah.
Did that just happened to think, did anyone mention crop sharing? No?
Define crop sharing.
Yeah.
It's where a person comes in and raises whatever, and they share half of what they raise with the person that owns the property.
I don't recall them talking about that, but I'm not saying they didn't. Does anybody else remember them talking about that sharing?
no.
Okay.
Not in that specific term, but.
Yeah.
don't they become serfs if we start?
That's right.
Okay.
And the county government lives in the castle on the hill.
I have in my notes several times historical.
Yeah. Historical trades,
I don't know which one that would go under.
preserve New Hampshire's agricultural history.
Is that under almost conservation?
And we have research up there, does that fall under, because at several of them, they talked about growing specific crops, grain production, they talked about
Yeah, that-
marijuana and hemp and
that's
so
for-
forth.
For me, that's production ag.
Oh, okay, under that, okay.
Is that where solar farming was put? I love that term, I love that term.
Isn't that like an other? Things that don't fall under any one of those four?
Yep.
It's production, wouldn't that be part of the production?
Not agriculture,
It's
though.
not agriculture per se.
Yeah.
No, but it might come under leasing because they, some rent the property. Some such things.
Do we want to put research under education as well?
A separate,
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I'd have it separate.
And is that ag research?
We've got educational center, but I think we also talked about kind of combining the two. In other words, it'd be education and research as well.
Well, the research would cover not just agricultural production, but the forest lands.
Exactly.
Somebody
Everything.
mentioned that last
Yes.
night, as well as, I'm thinking, it might have been in Moultonborough, they talked about the wetlands,
Mm-hmm.
researching
Yeah,
wetlands. Not only using them for kids to come
Yeah.
and learn from, but to do research on the, it may, yeah, I thought it was in Moultonborough, but
Yeah.
it may have been somebody outside just talking to me, I'm not sure which.
Research could be, as we've talked, education in many respects is kind of an outreach. In other words, we're reaching out to the high schools, we're reaching out to get farmers, young farmers or any farmers certified. And couldn't research do the same thing? In other words, this is an outreach to basically to help the existing farmers in the county to have access to the other crops, et cetera, things like that, maybe production and so forth. So the research, I think we want to make clear, it's not just limited while we're using the almost 900 acres as the research center. The goal is to reach out to benefit the whole agricultural community or any landowner within the county.
support local ag.
Okay, and I also have forest management lessons,
Okay,
and that was from the Moultonborough meeting.
okay.
What was that now?
Forestry management lessons.
Lessons?
And I
Okay.
think that may have come up when they were talking about reclaiming some cropland, and then somebody else, I think, or that, maybe that same person said that they could have lessons on how to maintain.
That's
Forest.
forestry management
Yeah,
education,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. That would probably come through extension as well, wouldn't it? All into education, yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily through extension, the high schools also, and sometimes some other organizations do those things.
Okay. Let's see. Forestry, we've got production, we've got also the sugar bush for under forestry. Maple sugar,
That's production ag.
yeah, that'd be production, yeah. Where would we put leasing? Where would we
Is that hit that other category?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, another
Other
category.
uses?
Well-
Yeah, other uses, leasing the property out.
Leasing it out for what?
All of the above.
It could be any purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, the
Gravel operation.
we've got the drain.
Yeah.
Yeah, gravel needs to go there.
I mean, it could be the horseback riding, I think it was, we could lease that out, it's up to them to maintain the stables and the horses and everything else.
Well,
shooting
build
range,
it.
at least that out.
I think that could be either way. We could have the trails and they could come for the day and ride the trails, or
Yep.
somebody could purchase
Yes.
and have some sort of
Yeah.
portable stalls and whatever. And
Yeah, if I remember when, I can't remember, was it Representative McConkey who brought that up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he talked about having the horses here, and there was facilities where they could keep the horses, so we'd be leasing that out altogether. Let me see.
I think you talked about a boarding facility.
What?
Yes, yes, you're right, Sandy.
That's very expensive.
Yeah.
Where did he say that he had worked? as a-
Nesselnook, was it Nesselnook
Yes,
or something
in
like that?
Jackson, yeah.
Ness-
Yes, sleigh rides and so forth, yeah.
Nesselnook?
Nesselnook, it's just off of 16, you go through the covered bridge there in Jackson, you take like either the first or the second right, it's down in there.
Okay.
But they have quite an operation in the winter for sleigh rides.
Doesn't the farm by the river do that in Conway also?
Might be.
Up there on West Side?
On the West
Road?
Side Road, they rent.
They do have trail rides.
They do have trail rides and so forth, whether there's sleigh rides or not, I don't know, Amanda, but they do have horses there that the trail rides. Historical trades.
They talked about the cooperation of organizations having farm days here.
Yes, they used to have those.
About, I
Yeah,
know, but
yeah.
I'm not sure they were talking about the county being involved in it as much as they were talking about different organizations getting together to have their own
I
day.
think they were referencing when they had been done here, but
Oh.
Yeah.
they, like the lady from Bartlett/Sandwich said, and I loved her term, where was her term here? But anyway, she was talking about if you had this property, then the property itself could be leased for events.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know how you phrase that, or which category, maybe in
An
the
event.
other.
Uses, yeah, for other.
Event venue.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
we've got that on the
Oh,
lease.
event venue. Oh, I like
Because
that
you're right.
phrase.
You know, there could be the
That's-
small beginning farmers of New Hampshire may want to lease it for an annual event or something. New Hampshire's organic, Norfolk, New
Yeah.
Hampshire may want to lease it for events, because we certainly have the facilities to do that. That may be worthwhile really promoting and encouraging right there.
Well, because I know other organizations use the facilities for their own meetings.
Yeah.
So to use them outdoors, I would think
Yeah.
that would be
Mhm.
perfectly acceptable. We'd have to check our insurance, of course. Now, I had a question that was brought up last night about marijuana and hemp production. And I looked online this morning, and marijuana production in New Hampshire is illegal.
Medical marijuana dispensary,
Right,
that's what I said.
well, let me continue if I may. Medical marijuana production, I couldn't find anything in New Hampshire about it, but in Maine, there are places that are licensed to do that. So I was wondering, is that something that New Hampshire can do? Can you get a license to raise medical marijuana?
Ken?
It's licensed through DHHS.
In New Hampshire?
Yeah, there's 3 grow facilities. 7 licensed dispensaries so far in New Hampshire. There's a grow facility right in Rochester. So
So I don't know if that's something we want to consider or not, but that was
I-
brought up last night.
I think it might conflict with our CMS payments from the federal government. I'm not sure, we'd have to look into that.
What might be the conflicts, do you think, Ken?
Well, because it's
Marijuana is
it's
illegal.
a federal, law against marijuana, and we get some money from CMS, which
Like
is a
jeopardize
federal.
that funding,
Yeah,
okay.
Well, you don't know that.
right, I said we'd have
Well,
to check
as Ken
on
said,
that.
We'd want to look into that, just
Yeah.
explore that.
But I mean, we'd make a heck of a lot more in
Yeah.
marijuana sales than
We'll
we
leave
get
it
from
on the
CMS.
list.
So what I call a dispensary?
Yeah, that was my
dispensary was his comment last night, but, and the growth of it came up, I think it was at Multenberg. I also checked, and I couldn't find out if the production of hemp is legal in New Hampshire. I do know the University of New Hampshire has been granted permission to grow hemp.
As in study, yes.
But I couldn't find anything that said the local farmer could go raise hemp. But New York State has been very successful in that. They started as an experimental, and then several were given licenses, and I guess now I don't know if it's still licensed or not, but it's quite productive, and it's apparently profitable.
And Kansas also has done that, and they are way ahead of us also.
Colorado has as well, has it?
Oh, you can do anything in Colorado.
If I could bring you back to what we're really doing. That's right.
Well, I wanted that under the
No,
production.
it's
The
on
voice of
there.
reason.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
Is it under production?
there was mention on our first day, and I thought it was a great idea, and it was Will, that we're tapping a bunch of maple trees out in a certain section. And he says there's more. But we certainly should look at, is that worthwhile of changing the forest pattern in there to promote that?
Someone put that on there, and I brought it up as
Isn't it
well.
up there
Yeah.
on
It's on the
production?
sugar bush, yes. Yeah, no, definitely.
Increasing, or
Yeah.
the term sugar bush doesn't necessarily mean anything to me,
Okay.
but
Okay.
there
What-
might
what's-
be,
what's the
in
term
my,
you
in
wanna
my,
use,
in my
Mark?
lands, we cut out the hardwood this year because the pines are delivering so much seed this year that we're taking advantage of all that, and we opened up area,
Yeah.
and pine I can turn over quicker,
Yeah.
every 10 years or something.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a wonderful idea that they should be doing surveys and walking through and finding that, and then if that makes sense, and I don't think it makes sense at 50 cents a tap, but if someone was gonna take over the production and they wanted to do something, if they were able to increase that fivefold, does that make sense? And if it does that bring us a potential of more income?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
it's also part of, would come under the educational part,
Yeah.
because the state is
Yeah.
changing the rules every now and then as to how to do it, so.
There's quite, I'm not familiar with a lot of the maple sugar operations, but there's one over in Woodstock. He's a selectman over there in Woodstock. He's got quite an elaborate, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but when Sarah was a reporter for the Union Leader for the North Country, we went over there, she went over there, we did a story on it. I mean, that's quite an operation he's got. So, yeah, I agree with you, Mike. There could be some real potential there for the county.
One of the other things that was listed under other is the water system expansion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Ed
right,
brought
he
that
did
up.
mention
First
that,
one, he
yeah.
did mention that, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna put that at the end of other as well, yeah.
But I
That
think
sheet's
corresponding with
filling
that
up. There's a lot of
is
stuff
under the
there.
conservation would be protection of the water table.
The watershed.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
watershed.
Yeah,
That all comes under conservation, doesn't it? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry.
yeah,
Well, there's the conservation easement,
Yeah.
which was mentioned, but if that was, even if that was not done,
yeah, easement,
then you've
yeah,
got the watershed protection,
yeah.
or the aquifer.
Where does that fall into this, though?
It would fall in the conservation category, that's all.
I wonder if it's there or education side.
Wouldn't that be under the wetland
Yeah.
education?
Maybe.
I noticed somebody also mentioned hydropower,
No, hydroponics.
hydroponics,
Hydro-
okay,
aquaponic.
okay.
That-
Aquaponic and hydroponic. Aquaculture, rather. It's aquaculture, not aquaculture.
Is an aquaculture fish?
Yeah. Mhm. That brings in the fish with the plants.
We
I
have-
remember early on, yeah, Andy Kendall, one of the times he was up there, maybe it was during the tour. But he talked about the Boston market, the salad green market in Boston, just in Boston alone, was $100 million a year. And there's a farmer up in the northeast kingdom of Vermont, just 2.5, 3 hours north of us, that sells salad greens into that Boston market. And I just find that amazing, that he can drive all the way down there and make money.
Doesn't take up much weight, though.
No, you can get a lot.
Well, we gotta be cognizant of the fact that Leaf Farm over in Loudon is going to be capable of producing, I don't know how many thousands of pounds of fresh leafy greens year-round. And there is another outfit that is putting up a similar type of greenhouse complex in Berlin.
Yes, yeah.
And
Is
they-
that a definite in
Yeah,
Berlin?
apparently
Yes.
that's a definite.
Yeah,
And
two
they
10-acre greenhouses.
should be in production in, they're gonna be doing greens and tomatoes. I
Tomatoes,
think.
yep.
They should be in production next year.
They haven't broken ground yet, there's been some sort of a delay. They hope to be breaking ground this fall to be in production next year, but I think they have fallen behind. But they
Okay.
had a $25 million loan from USDA to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And according to the president, they have already sold everything that they will be producing. Two 10-acre greenhouses,
I'm not surprised.
yeah.
Okay, that brings up the last thing that was mentioned last night, was the food hub.
Food hub, yeah.
Is that on here?
It is not.
That would be under production ag. If that,
Well, that wouldn't be production produced here, that would be,
well, but it's all part of that production ag business. It's the way he defined it, the speaker defined it last night, was as an aggregation point, gets stored and then shipped back out again.
they also have the way they aggregate everything and then people come and buy it right there.
That is another way of looking at it.
I don't know how that would impact our farmers markets though.
That's an idea, should be up
Mhm.
there. So, the only one out of all that I'm questioning is conservation, because what we were hearing, and maybe it's somewhere else, was the concept of a conservation easement or ownership by a nonprofit. That's what I kept hearing.
Mhm.
So, it was a conservation easement, it was all one word. And I don't think watershed protection should be tied to that. Watershed protection, if we were to look for conservation easements and the goal of water conservation easements was watershed protection, that was made a highlight, then it might eliminate a whole host of
Other
farming
things,
things
yeah.
and everything else, where there'll be some guidelines to what can go in here, and I think that's when watershed protection comes in.
And the guidelines would be tied to what could go where.
Right. So I'm not sure, I think conservation easement should be the title.
Okay, and take out the
Stand
water.
by
Take
itself.
take out
protection.
water protection.
Should that maybe be under the other, conservation easement be under the other heading, not a heading all by itself?
Well, no, I think it was said enough times that a conservation
Yeah,
easement,
at both Molten Borough and
Like do this,
Newton and Lock County
and then
last night,
just
they talked
cross
about
this
off.
conservation easement, yeah.
when we get to goals and how we're gonna get there, protecting the aquifer and everything else are all going to be items, but
Mhm.
I don't want that to be a highlight thing, and then it's gonna could eliminate an awful lot of farming activity. So we need to find those places that will work and not be burdensome. So I just don't want it to be a
Okay.
highlight, yeah.
Least restricted.
Yeah, let everything still continue to flow.
So we haven't captured wildlife corridor. We have not captured preserving New Hampshire ag history or historical trades or the harvest day.
Yes, we have, that was a venue.
We got that, we kind of
Oh.
lumped that into
Yeah,
that
okay.
venue.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of a nice phrase. The historical, I don't know, we don't have, We have the Pompous Cemetery, that is historically accurate. We do not have the Popper House that has been taken down, the original farm buildings, I believe, the original barn that was here burned. So I'm not sure about the preserving the historical structures. We can preserve the historical.
Do they fall into education?
It could.
Yeah, yeah.
Preserving New Hampshire's agricultural history.
I don't think we need another historical agricultural museum. We have
Yeah,
several.
we keep
We
it
have
around
several.
in some respects.
Right.
There's one down in Milton, which isn't that far down the road.
I don't think that's what, I had a little trouble getting a handle on what she meant by it.
But she was pretty much describing to a T the Remick farm.
Yeah.
And that's what we discussed. It was pretty close, a working farm. You
Yeah.
see this happen, and they do ice farming in the winter, and, you know, and they show
I was
animals and
I was
so forth.
wondering if Diana was talking about it in terms of similar to a Sturbridge Village or a
Yeah,
Plymouth
yeah.
Plantation or
Yep.
Mystic.
Yeah.
Because Remick does not use
They do not use
antique
rich-
equipment.
or methods or
Well, for
dress,
the ice gathering they do.
you know.
Then, remember we're back in the garden, showing my age. What was it, the 60s or 70s, the movie Hawaii came out? They made a lot of
With
that
Elvis
movie right there at
Presley?
Sturbridge Village.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Not the Hawaii scenes, but when, at the very beginning, it's the Sturbridge Village they used that setting background. Ooh.
Okay, so the campsites, was that both open to the public as well as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, et cetera?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it would be.
like a public camping area? Can we put any kind of restriction that this is for residents of Carroll County? Any of these recreational activities?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
If it's public monies, I'm not so sure you can do that, particularly if there was state or federal monies involved in it.
I was just thinking
don't know,
because
that's something
there
we-
was
we
so much
really gotta check on.
controversy over the Diana baths.
Yeah.
And the people that live
Yeah.
in the area said they don't even go there anymore because of the overcrowding.
Yeah.
If people in the county had their own trails to hike
Isn't that
and
what Yogi
sites
Berra
to
said
camp.
one time, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded? Under education, organic gardening, do we have that under there as well? That'd be research or education,
Or both.
or both?
I think she was talking about production, wasn't she?
Well,
Eating local and.
a lot of the speakers that were, people that made suggestions seemed to be pushing organic production. I personally would do the same, but I don't think you could limit it to that, and I don't think we'd want to.
You know what I was just observing, looking at this? Except for maybe hunting at the same time we're hiking, I do not see why all of that could not be done simultaneously or seasonally. I mean, I don't see anything up there that,
Conflicts with anything else.
yeah, and is beyond normal comprehension, I
Yeah.
guess is the word.
Well, just a question here.
Be interesting.
I mean, there may be some, you're talking about seasonality. Would we want people out there hiking when the hunting season's on?
Well, that's what I just said,
Yeah.
hunting would be the
Yeah.
only thing that I would think
Yeah.
that might not be compatible with everything else.
Yeah, horseback riding, things like that during the hunting season, maybe.
Well,
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
So, maybe you're not a hunting fan. Okay, let's talk about it. We got 900 acres.
Yep,
There are certain times of year that bird hunting's happening.
yep,
And it's only conducive in certain parts of the property.
yep.
So something regulated like that could be happening at the same time. And it could be happening on hiking with people working their dogs in the field and things. So leave it up as hunting is one of the options. Don't be trying to eliminate it right now. Let the whole conversation happen.
I
How
wasn't
many
talking about
months a
eliminating.
year is actually open hunting season?
12
It's-
months of the year for various,
For most, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on what it is you're hunting and, yeah.
You know, and you just brought up a subject that wasn't brought up. We have these fields, and after the hay is harvested, people could come and train their dogs, and they could use them for, they have competitions for the dogs,
Sure.
don't they?
Yeah.
that's the event venue.
Sheepdog trials.
Oh, nice.
What about, I just thought of, it wasn't mentioned at one of our sessions, but open hay fields. Used for recreational aircraft competitions or flights, like in small drones or something, or the model airplane. Again, that's a,
Yeah.
event venue, yeah.
Could that fall under recreation?
Yeah, it could be, it
Yeah,
is.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that-
some of
that-
those headings are pretty broad.
Wow, yes, it's kind of like they just are growing like
Yeah,
little blobby
yeah,
monsters.
yeah.
You'd have to be careful around the correctional facility.
Oh, goodness, yes, sorry about that, I forgot.
There are laws that
Yeah,
keep them away, but
and for how many feet, right?
I cannot give you that.
I'm sure that there are, I'm sure that there's probably, I know there is some restrictions now about the hunting has to be so far away from the buildings and all of that. But, I mean, those are kind of common sense things, but those are things that we would have to look into. But I don't see anything there that can't happen with that. Does that make sense?
The only thing, well, this is personal, so I'm not gonna comment on it. Gravel,
Yeah.
Well,
mining,
that, I think somebody said last night, is regulated
pretty heavily.
by the state, or
Yes,
is it the
I'll
federal?
get back to my client in a minute. I really have something I have to do before I leave. Let's talk about it. The term mining and gravel production conjures up horrible sound and machines and dust and everything else. When I got a chance to speak to that lady later on, she touched on a wonderful idea. And I'll come back to part of that, but let's say, I think we should do, personally, we should do an inventory not only of our trees,
Mhm.
but that brings up the problem with soils. We should have our soils mapped.
Yeah, exactly.
For much more so than just what it says on the map. And then we should look at our other resources are there. She's very right. There might be a natural gravel area there. And it might be located in such a place that we can get to it and it's not going to be, a bird noise and so forth. But if we were to open up a small place like that in here, then we might be able to get our own gravel to build our own trails, to build our own roads.
Mhm.
You have a water system right now that they keep telling me we can't drive
Right,
to.
exactly.
Well, let me tell you, something's wrong, number one. But number two, if we have a small pit in here that's highly regulated, you can only open up 1 or 2 acres at a time or something, and our materials here, we can start doing those things. If we need a trail network, we start
Yeah,
doing things.
yeah.
We may find that when they do the resource mapping, we've got none of that, but maybe we do. Maybe it makes sense to open up a piece, and then someone brings in a crushed gravel portable machine, and they make you a huge mound of road base. It goes away. It's noisy for a week or 2 weeks, and it's gone, because you're paying a large fee, they process it's in there. That would be wonderful. Now aggregate, so we're not competing with the yards we have around us, but in material, trucking is everything. So to get a truck from Ossipee, you get it up here and turn around, it's gonna cost you probably $90 every load, wherever it's coming from. If the material's here and it's small batch, then the crew, Public Works, can then grab onto it and just spread their own material and stuff. So I wouldn't want to see a gravel operation begun here, but it very well may be that we've got some resources. We may find, for instance, we may find that you've got the most, one hill is an esker and it's the most beautiful sand. Well, we could use that for something. We might find that it's, we open up a hill and it's got 6-inch minus. Boy, now we've got our road base. So I think we should inventory, part of our thing is we should inventory not only trees and so forth, but what's here for materials, you know, what's in the ground. I don't want to use the word mining, there's a term for it.
And I believe, if I'm correct, that there's almost no oversight and financial investment if you use it on your own property.
Yeah.
The other thing.
You just got to maintain X number of feet from you can't excavate within 4 or 10 feet of a water table and stuff. But I'm talking about something really small for the benefit of 900
Yes,
acres.
so you're talking in-house, basically,
Yeah.
using this resource in-house, to
And
build
that-
trails to do.
And that could be used educationally also.
Yeah, my comment was that I thought what the woman was saying was a commercial operational gravel operation to sell it off-site.
Yeah, I talked to
and
her
I-
afterwards.
I would have
I
problems.
would
with-
frown on
Yeah.
it. Yes, I'd frown on it.
For our own, for the own use of the county, you know, of the complex,
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
You might find taking off the top of an esker then to be a place to turn into a hayfield or something, you know, maybe
Mhm.
makes sense. That's what, managing the land as opposed to just letting it just physically sit there.
Yeah.
So I think some of that mapping is necessary. So.
Last night, up at North Conway, if I remember correctly, there was some discussion about doing the very kind of soil inventory that you're talking about. You're talking about growing different crops, and the question was, well, is the soil type suited for those crops? So picking up on Mark's comment, I think we want to do that kind of a soil inventory in which, you know, we determine soil types and so forth, so that we would know just what we can and can't do.
Mark, what
Yes.
about, I have maps that were done, I don't know, maybe it was the Extension Service back in the 40s or 50s, that shows all the soil types on my farm.
Yeah,
It comes in a little book.
yeah.
The soil doesn't change, right?
Most of those maps were made by a flyover analysis. That should be, and then they went and, you know, did some test pits, you know, every 20 miles or something to confirm things. Highly inaccurate.
General.
Not typically accurate within 2,000 feet, I think is the model. But it gives a good general idea. So when we go out and do a test pit, and anything, the state always wants to know what they said the land was mapped at.
Right.
But we then interpret what we see and then we put it into that. So they've started redoing Carroll County and they did a much better job. So instead of just doing topography, you know, this is steep slope, so it's probably this soil and that soil. They've updated a lot of that, but those are used for planning purposes only. So in this case, where we have 800 acres, we should come to a point to find out what it would take to get it mapped
Yes.
better.
Yeah.
Is
And
that
you could,
expensive?
well, you have a community of soil scientists and people that if you make this, you know, you bring them in, I'd first try and bring them in as a project and have them do it. You have a whole community of septic designers that every year have to do continuing education hours. So why doesn't the state hold their training, their field day out here? And why don't we set it up so that we get pits done all over the place for absolutely no
Yeah, yeah.
fee to us? There's ways of doing this, but But, you know, they also could go out and say, what would it cost to have a firm come through? You know, and you tell them every so many acres you want mapped and that sort of thing. But it takes you from that very broad document now to something finite. So now, if they know, I don't know, do maple trees thrive a place where hardwoods thrive where pines don't, or, you know, things like that, you know, so we know what conservation will tell us, you know, what the soil analysis is, you know, can it only do hay and so forth. So we have much better data, because then the people that might be interested in leasing the land know
Yeah.
right off the bat.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't they know right off the
Yeah,
bat?
under other, should we put soil inventories?
Yeah, well, that's,
That's good.
Oh, yeah, I
That's
put it-
that's a very good.
Yeah, because I agree. I think if we're gonna be thinking about leasing, I think the more information and data we could give a prospective lessee, you know, this is what you can grow and what you can't grow, these are the soil types, I think it makes it much more accurate and enticing.
I don't know if I'd say soil inventory as a resource inventory.
Resource.
Okay, all right.
Resource
all right.
That's much
Yes,
more
yeah.
Yeah, thank
inclusive,
you.
That's better.
Yes, you're right, Sandy, that is better, resource inventory.
because that brings in the trees.
They bring in tree types and everything else as well.
Everything.
Well, and you know, now there's a new, I don't think it's a new machine, but it's new to my knowledge in this area, that Tumbledown Farms is using. They're a place where they raise a lot of the food for their restaurant. And I was involved with them in spreading soil enhancements. And after they put in this beautiful field, they had it all stumped, plowed, harrowed, planted, everything was ready. The rain came, and what they grew were rocks. And I mean, and that's very typical in certain areas here. And I know last night it said that there were a lot of rocks here. But what he has done now is he has a machine that has, what it does is it doesn't disrupt the ground. It doesn't take the stumps out. It just kind of goes along and cuts the stumps or grinds them or whatever. It's an efficient process where he can go along. He doesn't disturb it. He doesn't bring those rocks to the surface, etc. And then it's planted. He puts the soil enhancements and everything else down and plants it. And the stumps just rot like they would in the woods without the rocks coming to the surface. So I know last night it was said that certain things couldn't be grown here because it had a rocky soil. Something of that nature, I think, would be acceptable here. You know, things that, the no-till farming is a very burgeoning
Yeah.
operation.
No-till, low-till.
Yeah, so you're not running down and picking those rocks up and picking them up to the surface.
Well, it's not just the rocks either with the tilling, you're turning the ground over, so
Yeah.
you're removing that top healthy
Yeah,
soil
yeah.
and you're replacing it
Yeah.
with the gravel below.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are some alternatives, and if we knew what the soil was, it would help us to know what types of.
When we're discussing this over the last 3 listening sessions, and they're talking about campsites, trails, events and so forth, what I was thinking of, and I don't know how this would work, and maybe this crazy coffee meeting, but those people have to be fed somewhere. And I'm wondering if on site here, where we've got that old dining room and so forth, if maybe, knowing an event is coming in, there are gonna be 150 people there for the weekend, could the county or another entity basically say, okay, we will feed them. We will feed those people for the weekend, those 150 people, provide free meals for them. I mean, could as an offshoot of that be a way for someone to make some money just on that event alone? They know there's gonna be 150 people there for that weekend.
Well, I know at Pride Day in Wakefield, people bring their little trailers like
Yeah.
they take to the fairs.
Yeah.
And they'll have ice cream and pizza and,
Yeah.
you know, I think they have hot dogs and hamburgers. So, and those sites are rented to the people with the
Yeah,
trailers.
well, that's, is that something that we might want to explore as well? Just another opportunity for the county to lease up there to make money.
Well, that would
We're
come
leasing
under-
out for events, specific events.
For the event venue,
Yeah.
if we let the
I
Girl
mean,
Scouts come
we've
for
got that
nothing,
there.
we
It's
charge
just,
the those people.
how broad, how open do we want that to be? There may be other opportunities there that we haven't even thought of yet, but still could be opportunities.
I think what Mark said about the soil survey being done by local interested parties. I'm not sure how to go about that, but that, if it's going to get done and done properly and not cost any money, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
Well,
just-
Mark seems to have a lot of knowledge on that, so he may be
I
the
don't know
one
if you
that's.
have influence in that.
Exactly,
Can
yeah.
you-
I
can
think
you
you know
get
the right
that
phone calls to
done?
make and the right people to talk to.
McKen, once we get a plan going, I've been trying to get the state to tap that resource for the state parks. Every year in the budget, every 2 years, we get these enormous bills for failed septic systems. I go, why aren't we being proactive? And I said, here's the tool that we can get that done
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
They just look at me with four heads, so.
Do they do it someplace?
Just because they don't do it doesn't mean we can't.
Exactly.
Well, no, I didn't
exactly.
want to try to steal it from someplace else.
Yeah.
I am all for being proactive and coming up
Yep.
with new things.
Yep.
That's what you've been talking about, thinking outside the
Exactly,
box.
we've got to be thinking outside the box here.
So, no, let's see how things play out.
Yeah, yeah.
Those things, that's, as far as I, that's kind of comes under education. And
Yeah.
there's so many things that you can get done.
Well, I think the trail system, I was thinking about this last night, I don't think that if we agree that that's a nice thing to do, I don't think that needs to be studied by a feasibility study. I think that's something that the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Ag School, the trails, there's a person up in Conway someplace that oversees all the trails in the Conway area. And I think they clean the trails and take care of the trails with volunteer help.
Conway, Whitaker Woods in Conway, North Conway.
Is that what it
and
is?
over. He's gonna, basically, they have a very extensive trail system that the town owns and maintains. So again, you know, we could tap into a resource as to how do you do this. And as Mark has said, if in doing the
Certainly.
soil resource thing here, and if we could find some gravel around, we could really begin a very sophisticated trail network. Could we use the inmate labor in helping to do that? I mean, it's gonna be branches overgrowing the trail and have to be cut back and opened up a little bit, but again, we may find that we've, as you said, we've got all the resources we need right here to do that.
Well, you talk about the feasibility study, the more that's in it, the more it's gonna cost.
Exactly.
So I was just thinking, I'm not sure that either of those need to go into a feasibility study.
I agree. And that would be
But
the
I
next
do
step.
think it's something should be done, which
Yeah.
I gather in order for something to go forward, it needs to go through the commissioners first. And if it's non-expense oriented, the commissioners can make those decisions.
Well, I think you're really onto something here, man. Once we put all this stuff together, we may realize that going through a filtering system, that there were a lot of these things, and I use the word common sense very loosely here, but why do we need to study this?
Yeah.
We know we've got everything here, we can do this.
Yeah.
We find we've got the resources to do it, so why do we need to do a feasibility study to determine whether this makes sense?
I think the key word here is cooperation.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure if I went to the people that put in septic systems in my town and said, oh, hey, come on up to the county farm and dig some holes for us,
Yeah.
they would probably not pay too much attention. But if Mark went and said,
That's right.
you know, and talked to them in
It's-
their language,
Exactly.
It's just, it's a relationship. I
Exactly.
have the relationship with the
Exactly.
state, and I have relationship with certain organizations. And
Yeah.
if they know that this is something that is part of a bigger plan, and they are given the opportunity to help with
Yes.
it, they will.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
if it-
We don't go out tomorrow and say we're gonna do 20 test pits. Nobody's happy with that.
Yeah.
But no, it also could be a way for them, for the members, to satisfy their continuing education requirements.
well, and I had
That's what I
mentioned
think
that,
Mark
I
was
think.
talking about,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Plus the teaching, I mean, I'm sure that there are new people that want to do this, and, you know, I don't know how do they educate people to put septic systems in?
You have to be licensed, well, you're not licensed, you're permitted by the state, but if you're gonna be a designer, you have to show proficiency in test pits, logging soils.
Who
and
teaches you that?
Well, University of New Hampshire has classes, and there are places that have classes, and most designers work with other designers, and I've trained my sons. That's it's just, but then you're subjected to you're subjected to a field test where they have soil scientists come in, and you have to show them what you find, and everything has to matter, and that sort of thing. We dig holes, we dig 6-8 foot holes. Soil scientists come in, and they're only interested in the first 18
Right.
inches of soil. So, it's all perspective, but everybody has to have continuing education hours. Everyone would love to see a nice big publicity thing in the newspaper and spread around that this organization has shown up and done this. So that'll help get a lot of your mapping done.
Exactly.
Mark, question for you. Okay, for septic system design, people, the students have to go either to UNH or a couple of
They
other
don't
places?
have to, but they can bypass some of the testing if they're classed and have certain grades.
But is there a location or two in the state where people go to do these tests?
They usually rotate around the state.
Okay,
But there are also testing facilities
uh-huh.
that people pay to have in the ground, to put systems in, to be monitored and all that sort of thing. But
Okay, just
the
a,
University of Rhode Island are trendsetters beyond belief.
Mhm.
Minnesota is a trendsetter for the whole country. And they actually have labs. They have places set up
Yeah.
that are laboratories. And this very well might be a place that it could be a
well, I
laboratory.
was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Mark, is UNH an extension, UNH through extension, are they a resource that we could tap far more than has been tapped in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
They have a tremendous workload, but there are some things that they certainly.
Exactly, and again, knowing what resources and what they bring to the table may help us through a filtering process to determine what we need to go out for the feasibility study for and what we can do in-house.
And also UNH directly
Exactly, yeah,
can be
yeah.
a resource.
So I think that's something
For
we keep in the
example,
back of our minds
when I
as well.
when I want to know if my cows are bred or not, I take a blood sample from their tail and I take it down to the university.
Uh-huh.
And several times I've, showed other people how to do it. Now, I am not, in any way, shape, but at the university, I've asked, and they have said, well, if there is a large enough people that want to see this, we'll come and do it.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
would assume they might do it through extension, but they may do it right through their own lab.
Okay. And again, getting back to when Glenn Cordelli was speaking, way back when, with the first committee, he put together a little workshop over at the Common School over in Tamworth. And he brought up some of the people, the organization that he had talked about at the Molten Borough one. They were there. And so I saw firsthand, they were handing out brochures and flyers, some of the courses that they offered. There was one outfit in Concord that I think is connected with the college system here.
NHTI.
Yeah, and so, as Glenn said, those resources may very well be available, which could possibly strengthen the whole educational aspect and the research of what we're looking at here, to be able to bring them in. And that certification program, which they made reference to, coming from them, that may be something that a lot of young farmers or people looking at farming as a career would want to get involved in, because that certification has far more meaning, knowing that it's more than extension involved in, but other well-respected, highly thought-of organizations as well. So that again could be a draw to really move this process forward. One of the things, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
If you have an established facility,
Yep.
there are companies such as the Seaman companies that will, if you have a gathering, will come and teach people how to do artificial insemination,
Yep.
how to maintain the semen, how to properly, you can even bring your own cow and actually do the
Okay.
insemination.
And someone could get a
So that it takes a
certification to be able to do
facility-
that then?
Pardon?
Someone could attending these classes could get a certification saying, okay,
Yes.
I'm authorized to do this?
Right.
Okay, all right, all right. One of the things here, I know we've got it kind of listed under other major headings, but we really haven't focused in on the county farm aspect of this thing as food production and so forth. I mean, and yet in almost every group, there was some reference to the county farm itself as not as a standalone, but more focused on the county farm, growing, tying in with other farmers and so forth. And I'm just wondering, we've got like under education and so forth, and we've got production, we've got a food hub, we've got grain, but those are part and parcels of other things. Do we want to pull out separately that aspect of the county farm as farming? Or are we comfortable with just leaving it as part and parcels of other areas here?
I have a question. What are we going, instead of taking line by line, I thought we were just kind of organizing things
Yes,
together.
that's-
Yeah.
And what are we
that's
going
what-
to do with these organized
Yep.
groupings?
Was that a
What are we
question?
going to do with these organized groupings?
Well, that's a discussion. After we had kind of put them all together, I thought the next step would be, as you say, kind of a filtering process, saying, okay, now through 3 listening sessions, these are comments, input, ideas that residents have given us. We've organized them. Okay, how do we want to maybe even organize them even further? Or what would we want to include in the request for proposal? What do we want studied? Am I thinking in sync with everybody else here? or-
Well, we were looking for common themes,
Exactly,
which we
exactly.
found. We're seeing
To kind of
over and over again,
identify. so the
recreation,
request-
education, production.
Yes, yes, Susan. So the request for proposal would include these. Under this, we want this studied. Under that, we want these items studied. And what the sense that I'm getting is, we've talked about the soils, we've talked about some of the other inventory, is a sense that, gee, maybe we don't need to include that in the feasibility study. There may already be other resources out there that we could tap into. As Mark with the soil inventory, as UNH and so forth with some of the other educational aspects of it. We don't need to do a study on that. They're gonna tell us something that we already know.
Oh, I think the agricultural education part,
Yep.
I think it's a lot more complex than you're talking about.
And that could very well be, But again, on that, would it hurt us to do our own inventory? I'm following up on Glenn's comments. I mean, we know there are other educational resources out there, and to talk with them to see just what is available. What could they put on the table to help us fulfill that educational aspect of it?
I think they're gonna wanna know what are we gonna put on the table to help
Well,
them.
and that, it's a twofer, we can do this, what can you do? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Talk to us,
we
Amanda.
cannot ask a college to come and set up classes.
Uh-huh.
You know, a standalone college. I think as maybe a partnership, we can if they, I'm thinking of the university has a beef farm, and their classes use the beef farm for all different parts of the classes. Whether we could have a piece here that the university could use, if we're that close to them or not, I don't know. If NHTI has, that would need facilities like that, or if we can form a partnership.
Mhm.
I think I've heard the phrase public-private.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm a big public-private guy, I want to say that. Yeah.
We have right now land, not too well surveyed, inventory.
Yep,
And that's our resource.
yep,
Um,
a valuable one.
Exactly.
Well, we also have other resources.
Yes,
We have, as the county, we have some equipment in various stages of repair and use. We have some buildings, a ditto for repair and use. But those are resources as well.
could I
That's
suggest
one thing that never came up.
that what we might want to
Something
do
that
is,
never came up, anything to do with the buildings.
Actually, it did in one of them.
Well, that's true, that's,
Yeah.
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 Well, it came up in one of the first meeting too, if I remember right, someone talked about, well, what is it you
Using
have
the
for
barn.
buildings,
Yeah.
could the
Buildings.
barns be used?
yes, yeah. But getting back to thinking about the education, as I said, if I remember correctly, and I may be wrong, I think that subcommittee that Glenn headed, he did a lot of work and research on that. And I would think that we could sit here and talk for hours and hours, but maybe just a good conversation with Glenn would give us all the info, would answer a lot of our questions as to what these other institutions may be able to offer, what they could do, what they couldn't do. Because we could spend days and days hunting them down. I think he's already done a lot of that. So let's tap into him. I think Glenn would be more than willing to come to one of our meetings and say, this is what I've done, this is where we are. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yeah, that's
Well, I think
Okay,
that
I have a question.
Yes.
Did Glenn and that committee produce a report or document?
they're still ongoing, so I don't think he's produced. We can ask Glenn for where
Yeah.
we are with it, yes.
Because that might save him some time.
We also found that when we traveled, we went to the Remick Museum, we went to the Tamworth Community School and met outreach at different
Yeah.
places that, one of the things we envisioned was that this would not be an educational facility that took away from any of the other places, and that we should be working cooperatively.
Mhm.
Right now, they have animals. Well, if they have animals, then we should work with them. The community school, I think they're out of the animal business now, but they were raising the animals for a while, or
I think they're going back, I
They're
think
going
they're,
back to it, so.
yeah, they're out of the
So
veggie.
we wanted to make sure that whatever we were producing here was in conjunction with
Yes.
everything. So
Not
you
competing.
might take a class here, but you may go to Remick Museum, you might go to community school, you might go to a cooperative
Yeah.
event somewhere, so. And we found that those groups were really supportive then, because here's some things they'd like to be able to do that they can't do with their facility, but maybe that's something that can be done with this facility.
Yeah.
So you've got
Yeah.
a network.
There was an awful lot of
Exactly.
energy every time we talked.
Yeah.
I will tell you that we attracted crowds that were larger than anything we ever saw here.
Yeah. Do you have lists of the things that they wanted from the county?
Glenn has all.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to go, so you're more than free. I'm worried that we don't have Dale, because Dale was ready to talk and wanted to, so maybe we can touch base with him too, and before we go to your next phase. And
He was very interested in contacting the people that were, he had a list, and NHTI was one of the ones on that
Mhm.
list.
Yeah.
And I had told him last night you would talk about it today, and
They're-
you could bring it up today.
Working on getting a building ready for occupancy tomorrow.
For bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say, so. When you can continue, I just want to know when you're going to meet next. I was supposed to
2
know
weeks,
the
2 weeks from
schedule.
today.
I
We've been on a
have
multi-week.
reserved this room at 3 o'clock on Friday, every other week.
Oh,
Yes,
for-
that was what we had originally said. So it'll be 2 weeks from today at 3 o'clock.
Was
What it
there
is, I'm sorry.
was there an idea about moving it to 2 o'clock, or was that?
No, that was just for today, I think,
That's
because
a con- so I can
Mark
get to
had
this.
Okay.
had a conflict.
Okay.
What I had done is I printed out, and I also emailed it to you, but I wanted everybody to have it today. And that is back, a few months back, Wendy Scribner had sent to Amanda, which Amanda forwarded to me. Basically, it's just a very rough draft and outline of the request for proposal that the first committee,
It's not in this, I thought that was in this report
it may be in that,
that
but.
we all have.
Yeah, but I printed it out too, just to
Mhm.
separate it. And also, there's an attachment that what Wendy had did is she had forwarded that to Charlie French with Extension, who basically handles economic development, and she ran it by him. And his cover letter, which I also included with that, again, gives us some background. What I'd like to do is at the next meeting, to kind of wrap this up, kind of go through it and decide what we want to do as the feasibility study, and then kind of transport this onto this just very rough request for proposal that the first committee had done. So I wanted everybody to have an opportunity before the next meeting to look at that rough draft of the request for proposal, and then take a look at, okay, what do we want to include in that, and start to work on that as well. That would be my hope. Yes, Amanda?
I do think that the things that if we don't include it on the feasibility study,
Yeah.
we should have a plan to do it.
Yes, I agree, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if we don't include soil inventory, then it's because we have this, and this
Yes.
is a plan with a time frame
Yeah.
and something that we can, because as you said, maybe the feasibility study may not happen for a while, but maybe some of these plans we can start initiating now. I would like to
Exactly.
see, as far as the trail systems go, I don't know if that would have to wait for the soil inventory idea, or,
I don't think you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm just trying to get
No.
my things done here. You don't want to put a trail network in and then find out that your trail network, if it say it's extremely popular, that it goes here, and then you get to the point that you have people come forward and say, I would like to lease this, this, and this, and now a trail runs right through it. So I think you kind of got to look globally at the whole thing, and then your trail network will fall in. Some places will be better for recreation, some won't. So I think what we're asking is a global approach for 900 acres. So I wouldn't be starting up a lot of stuff until you figure out the whole.
Yeah,
so the soil
I agree with
actually
that.
would be a big
Yeah.
impetus in that.
Yeah, there's planning that should be.
And I'm not intending to put words in Amanda's mouth, but I think what she was trying to do is, as we go through this sort of stuff, is to say, okay, what can we do ourselves? Maybe the timing isn't,
Sure.
we're gonna do it this, but what can we do ourselves, rather than be including in the feasibility study itself? But I agree with you, we wanna take a look at the bigger picture, the
And-
total entity.
And I think Mark's right, I think we need to do some global planning.
Yes.
And before we jump in, trying to push too quick to
Yeah.
get into the feasibility study, we're not in a rush, are we? Nope. So to take some time and
Yeah.
do some planning and make
Exactly.
some,
Exactly.
decisions. I think today's sorting out kind of, makes me think about other things. Hadn't even thought about the soil inventory. But the more I think about it, the more sensible it is. Well,
Yeah.
that's the bottom. That's what maybe we need to start with.
Yeah,
We need to finish the job that the first committee started and finish
Exactly.
the inventory. They started with the equipment and the buildings
this committee is a continuation going forward, is to complete their work and build on, to take it to the next level, the next step.
Yeah, and I think as far as the money goes, that money can be encumbered for all next year, right?
Yes.
Or is there a time limit on that?
I think you gotta bring it back up and then, yes.
But I'm sure if we're showing progress and solid progress based on solid information going forward,
This is a rhetorical question, but we've got the chair of the commissioners here, and we've got the chair of the delegation here. As we move forward, we've got 3 more months or 4 more months before you're gonna be looking at the budget. Okay. If we identify some things that we think would not be part of the feasibility study, but can be done in-house, not putting a timeline on it, just saying, okay, I use the soil inventory resource as an example, and we've already discussed that we can do. But if we came up with other projects and say, we can do this in-house without going through the feasibility study, but it may cost us a couple $1,000s to do it, is that something that maybe could be discussed as a budgetary item, or would you rather kind of shy away from that at this point in time?
You were doing really well until you mentioned money. So if it's an appropriation, it needs to come through the process.
Yeah, okay.
if it's something like building trails,
Yes,
that we expect a lot of volunteers, but we might need
yep,
whatever.
yep,
That would be something that could wait. It could go into this coming up budget and then be, maybe next fall be doing it. If we're going to talk about spending money on a soil inventory, that's going to be a pretty big thing, and that's going to take, you're going to have a lot of facts behind it before you
Yeah.
come forward and say, we need to spend a lot of money on this. Now, if we come forward and say, oh, we're not going to spend any money on it because we have a plan,
yeah.
can we do it? Then you're probably going to get,
Well, if
I hate to say permission, but yes, it'll be accepted.
If I've understood Mark correctly, and I want to put it back to make sure that I haven't misinterpreted or something. Well, it may not be done this year. If I understand Mark, is in bits and pieces over a period of time, we could probably get a pretty good sense of the soil inventory here. Just basically bringing people in who have to take refresher courses or so forth, tapping into UNH and maybe others who maybe willing to do pro bono because it gives them exposure and so forth. But this wouldn't be a big money item. Did I read you correctly in that?
In what I was talking about, but if I were to get this into the schedule so that it would be something that would be sanctioned by Department of Environmental Services
Yeah.
and things, that won't happen until next spring.
Okay, all right.
But we get it into the cycle.
Exactly.
We get in the cycle so that it
Yeah.
happens, and
Yeah.
it's on a calendar for people to see 3 or
Yeah.
4 months out.
Yeah.
And we'll try and handle it as one big project that way, but, there probably, there may be absolutely no expense to it.
Yeah.
Let me work
I
on
like that part of it.
So,
Yeah.
but, look at current events.
Yep.
I'm saying you can't spend money, but commissioners clearly went out and spent $10,000 last week, so there may be other methods available to you that I'm not familiar with, so.
I just want to make one other comment, and Mark, you brought up, and Amanda brought it up, and I think you both used the same term. I would hope
It's a
to
little
go.
red between Amanda
I
and I.
know.
And it's okay, because
Exactly, but I'm very excited about the fact that we're all looking at this thing as thinking outside the box. And I personally, I would like the idea of maybe Carroll County, in looking at this, is open and willing to go where no other county has gone before. And I like that idea. Just because other counties have been afraid that they look at this, we say, no, we're not afraid at all. If that means that I'm getting carried away with this thing, and I apologize, but if we can be breaking new ground and doing something different that others will want to take a look at, I like that idea itself.
Let the force be with us.
Exactly.
well, I don't think we have come up, I am very impressed that the things that we have come up with are not, in my opinion, long, drawn-out, complicated, controversial issues. They look pretty much, as Sandra was talking about, things that can be done with intelligence and common sense.
Yep.
I really do, and if we can find some financial shortcuts, that's fine, but if not, sometimes price has to be measured in things besides dollars and cents.
I'm with you. I think you're doing wonderful work, I honestly believe.
Take it.
Are we going to adjourn? Can we adjourn? May we adjourn? I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.